Game 1 futility for your Dallas Stars in the playoffs. What is up for this? For the 6th consecutive playoff, the Stars lose Game 1 of the series. Now, the silver lining is they've won 5 of those 6 series, but I think about Glenn Gulletson when he was, questioned about this amazingly regular occurrence. A lot of times he said, listen, I'm not looking at the history. I'm looking at this team. Well, yeah, I guess he wasn't looking at the history because here we go again, down that path again. Jonah, do you think it's any reason for alarm or is this just business as usual for your Dallas Stars?
I think it is cause for concern because the Wild are not chumps. This is a good team that gave them a run toward the end of the season for that home ice advantage in this series. They're facing a good team, and the challenge with this is it starts to plant a seed of what's happened the last 3 years for the Stars, which is going to the West Finals and coming up short. The latter half is what I'm focusing on, coming up short. And when that becomes it plays itself out over and over, sometimes these droughts become prophetic and self-fulfilling. I think about other teams that have had playoff droughts, and it's just like you can't get out of your own way. Now, the Stars are able to still overcome it in these early rounds. I'm just not sure they have the firepower this year. With some of the injuries that they've dealt with, there's still not, the chemistry is not in total the way it should be or the way you would want it to be this time of year. So, I do think that I'm a little concerned about this Stars team, at least heading into Game 2.
Yeah, it was really interesting, right? The Stars on home ice in the first period of that game, they looked a little nervy. And then, of course, we know what happened in the second period. They absolutely got blown away. What was your take on that, Mac?
The same thing that we saw against Edmonton in the Western Conference Finals last season when they were blown out. If you remember that series, Joe, they, after winning Game 1, they were destroyed in 4 straight. It wasn't close. And if you remember in Game 5, which was the decisive Game 5, Jake Ottinger, the goalie, allows 2 goals in the first 2 shots of the game. He gets pulled. And then after the game, then Coach Pete DeBoer is asked about it. And he said, well, it was a body of work thing. And then he's fired. And he was under contract. So Jake Ottinger goes out yesterday, gives up a goal in the first couple of minutes, gives up 3 in no time in the second period, and they're down 4-0, and they never get into the game at all. Now, it's unfair to put all of this on the goalie because what's going on in front of him is a disaster show. It's sloppy. They're not possessing the puck. They're not getting quality chances offensively. When they are, they're not scoring, and they're giving up too many good shots at him. But the bottom line is, in the last 5 playoff games, this team has been destroyed. And like Jonas said, Minnesota's really, really good. And since they made that big trade in December for Quinn Hughes, they're even better. So when you talk about should Game 1 be a source of concern, absolutely. They can win it, but just because they're the Dallas Stars and they've won 2 playoff series in each of the last 3 seasons means that they're going to be able to do this against a very, very good team.
Yeah, the thing that I thought was concerning wasn't as much Jake Ottinger, and I'm glad you kind of put that in perspective, Mac, because it wasn't all Ottinger's fault, right? He couldn't stem the tide like we've seen him do so many times. But the thing that concerned me was the time and space that the Wild had in their offensive zone on too many occurrences, right? Where there was a defender who was out of place, or the structure that the Wild was playing with had the Stars out of sorts. And you don't expect that from a division mate. That's what I couldn't understand. And my thought was, what are they doing differently, right, that the Stars either weren't prepared for or couldn't execute to try and make it null and void? And it happened 2 or 3 different times. And unfortunately for the Stars, on 2 of those occasions in the second period, it led directly to a goal. That was the biggest source of concern for me. I do think that this bunch is as resilient a bunch as you can absolutely think about, but they're also one that has a lot of wear on their collective tread with going with all those deep runs in the playoffs, year after year after year. Of course, they've been in the West Finals 3 straight times, as we've alluded to a couple times. At some point, right, it's going to come back and get you. And if they don't make things a little bit easier, right, you can't just keep grinding for pars, so to speak, right? You got to figure out a way to get a few tap-ins so that you can work through some of that mentality that has been so difficult for them through the years. So, Jonah, can they turn it around in this series, or do you think there's trouble ahead?
I can always count on you to drop in a golf metaphor or analogy.
It's going to happen. I promise.
They absolutely can come back in this series. You're down one game. It's the game that they lose all the time in the playoffs, game one. But they need their stars to show up because you bring in Mikko Rantanen last year, and really outside of that first series against the Avs, he didn't play great the end of last year's playoffs, and he hasn't really shown his full ability this year because of injury, and he hasn't been great since he's come back from injury. And so you need your stars to show up. You need Mikko to show up. Miro coming back from injury. A lot of these guys are not like, it's like they need to get their sea legs back. In order to win in the playoffs, you might get, a random goal from a Maverick Bourque or something, but you need your stars to lead the way. And when it comes to Mikko, Miro, Wyatt, Robo, those 4 guys, if they're not putting up multiple points on the stat sheet against a team like the Wild, then they're probably not coming back.